Good. Got the recording started. Um, Welcome everybody. My name is Max Callahan. I know the presenter reads as Tim Decker, but we're using his login. But I appreciate everybody showing up today. This is going to be the second time we've run this introduction to MotionBuilder presentation. The first time the recording didn't work properly, so this is obviously everybody's welcome, but this is mainly really to get a recording that we can share with everyone. As I mentioned to some of the early people on the call, the files that we get when we record these are pretty large, so we need to figure out the best way to get them, make them available to everyone. When we do that, I'll make sure that all the information is disseminated. There's also some example files that you'll see me use that I'm also going to make sure that we provide for you when we figure out where we can put those so that you guys can all conveniently get them. So this is really just going to be an introduction to MotionBuilder. MotionBuilder is an Autodesk application. It's available to you for free through the Autodesk student and educators community. You can get all of the 3D Autodesk software with a free 3-year license as a student by using your Art Institute's email address. So sign up for that community and you can download MotionBuilder and 3ds Max and Maya, and even if you haven't gotten to the 3D courses yet or you're from a different program, you can download them for free and use them. And every time a new version of the software comes out, those new versions you can also download again for another 3-year license. So that's really a great feature that they provide for students. So I'm going to just go through some of the basics of MotionBuilder and how it works with 3ds Max and Maya. There's going to be another presentation next month on the 5th, I believe, February 5th, at the same time, that's going to be focused just on the motion capture features of MotionBuilder. Today we're really just going to talk about how to work with characters from 3ds Max and Maya, and how MotionBuilder can hopefully help some of our students to become more comfortable with character animation. It's I think the best character animation software on the market, and it's much easier to understand and get started without a lot of background education about how to rig and model characters. So we're hoping that we can introduce this to you guys and start eventually offering this as an option for students to use if they want to in some of our character animation courses. We don't have any courses at this point to teach MotionBuilder, but hopefully the first step along to that will be allowing students to choose to use it if they want, because you'll see here in a second that it works pretty seamlessly with both 3ds Max and Maya. So I'm going to get started here. If you have any questions, shoot them in the chat box, and I'll make sure to get to all of them periodically, taking some breaks here. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you a character that a very simple basic character that I set up in both Maya and 3ds Max, and I'm going to provide these files to you along with the recording. But this is just going to show you how you go about taking a character that you create in 3ds Max or Maya, and how you can rig it very quickly and seamlessly in MotionBuilder. So this is a very simple segmented character in 3ds Max. There's no skinning involved, so obviously if there was a real full-fledged 3D character, you would skin the model to the skeleton. But this is just a segmented model where each part of the model is linked to the parts of the skeleton. And this is a very standard biped skeleton. It's really just the basic settings that you get when you create a biped. So once you've set up the skeleton and you've skinned the model, if you have a model to skin, you're basically going to be saving off files as an FBX format, which is the native format for MotionBuilder, and that should be available to you if you can export all of your work as an FBX file. It will be available to you in the Save as type in your export options in 3ds Max. If it's not, you can go up into your plugin manager and scroll down until you find the FBX plugin. There it is, FBX Max, and make sure that that says loaded. And I'll show you how to set that up in Maya too. But it should be on by default because FBX has been around for a while, so it should be on automatically in your copy of 3ds Max. But if it's not, you can go to your customize menu and under the plugin manager, go down and find the one that says FBX Max and make sure it says loaded. And if it's not, you can just click it again until it says loaded. So once the character is set up, you can just export and save the character off as an FBX file. I've already done that, and I just called this 3ds Max character for MB, MB standing for MotionBuilder, and I'll provide this file to you guys. And then once you do that, we'll just go into MotionBuilder, and the interface in MotionBuilder is pretty similar to the way I'm having some display issues here. Try and restart this. The interface is pretty similar to what if you have some experience with 3ds Max and Maya. It's a pretty similar interface, and I'll show you that really quick. It's a pretty hefty piece of software, so it's a good idea to save often as you're working with it because it can crash on you, especially if you don't have a lot of RAM or a heavy-duty graphics card in your computer. And so it's always a really good idea to save often when you're working in MotionBuilder. And I'm just going to open up this file that I saved off. And you'll see that the same character is loaded into MotionBuilder here, and you have the option to display your scene of models only, and then in models only and X-ray and the same kinds of settings that you're probably used to if you've been working in 3ds Max or Maya. But you can see that all of the models are there and the skeleton as well. So the first thing we do is we go through this process, and let me just close out 3ds Max here so that I'm not so that I have a little bit more RAM available to me. The first thing we go through a process of characterizing this character, because right now it's just the model and the skeleton. So we need to apply what's called a control rig, and that's going to give us the option for moving the different parts of the body and for setting keyframes. So we do that up here so if we select any bone in the skeleton here, it doesn't matter which one, and go over to our character controls window, and it's over here on the right. This is where you'll do most of your animation work in selecting the different parts of the control rig. If we click skeleton, it's going to ask us if we want to define a skeleton, and we're going to say yes. And that's going to open up the character definition tab here in our character controls. And you'll see that there's a red stop sign here in the corner, and that tells us that right now the MotionBuilder can't create the control rig for this character because the names of the bones is not something that it's able to read. And you can see that the one I have selected here is called BIP01 spine. And MotionBuilder looks for specific names for skeletons, and if it can't find them, you have to give it a little help to do that. And the way we do that is over here in our character controls window. We have a button that says Load Skeleton Definition, and if we click that, you'll see that we have a number of these. Pre-made templates that can help MotionBuilder figure out the names of the bones in the skeleton. And since we created this character in 3ds Max with a biped, we're just going to choose the biped template and press OK, and then you see that little stop sign turns to a green circle, and that means that it was able to recognize all of those bones the names of those bones with that template. So Now we're going to go down to what we call the navigator, and this is similar to the, if you've worked with 3ds Max, the select by name window. If you're familiar with Maya, it's very similar to the outliner and the sort of a combination of the outliner and the attribute editor. That underneath the characters, we have our default character, the character that we created, and it's named by default character. And it's really important to understand in Maya and 3ds Max, when you double click on the name of something, it allows you to rename it. It doesn't work like that in MotionBuilder. Double clicking just selects something. So in order to rename, you have to right click and choose rename. And I'm just going to call this 3ds Max character. And double clicking on that, I'm going into our character definition pane here. We're going to see that the button, there's a checkbox for this thing called characterize, and having a little trouble here because my mouse is not showing up in my, there we go. So I'm going to try and do this, and I can't see my mouse right now. So let's see if I can get close enough to click that checkbox. No. Let's see. There we go. So by clicking characterize, it's going to give me the option of choosing a biped or a quadruped. In this case, it's a biped. It walks on 2 legs. So I'm going to choose biped. And you're going to see that it says the character must be in a stance pose facing the positive Z direction. And if we look at this, the axis of the scene here, we can see that the character is facing forward in that Z direction. And this would be the same in Maya. In 3ds Max, the way that they set up their view axis is a little bit different. In 3ds Max, it's actually the negative Y direction. But the easiest way to remember it is just that in the front view, in all of in MotionBuilder and Maya and 3ds Max, you should be able to see the front of your character, the face of your character, and it should be facing in that direction. So we're going to choose biped, and it's going to give us a little warning about the fact that there's some rotation on some of the axes of the bones, and that's fine. That happens as you pose the skeleton for your particular character. So we're going to choose ignore all, and go down here to our where it says control rig, and hit create. And it's going to give us the option of choosing either IK only or an FKIK combined, and we're going to choose FKIK because that gives you the option of working with the FK skeleton, which is forward kinematics, or the IK skeleton. So it's always good to have that option. So we're going to click FK and IK, and that's it. We're actually done, ready to use this character here. And over in the character control window, you can see this allows you to select all of the different parts of the character of the control rig and move them. So I'm going to just select the elbow here, and that gives, just sort of bear with me, I can't see my mouse still. That just allows you to select any part of the character and move it with the move tool. The move tool is we have the move tool, the rotate tool, scale tool. These are all very similar to what you have in 3ds Max or Maya. And we can move different parts of the skeleton based on, you're also able to select them in the scene as well. You can select different parts of the skeleton. But the easiest way, and the most of what you'll use to select different parts, is under the character controls window here. So I'm going to save this file for now. Make sure that because again, it has a tendency to crash it sometimes. So I'm going to save this as 3ds Max characterized. Okay. And now let's go into Maya and show you how we take a similar character in Maya and set it up in MotionBuilder. So in Maya, I went ahead and named all of the joints in the skeleton to the default names that MotionBuilder is looking for. And I have a template that I created for you guys, a text document that gives you the name of all of those bones. And the typical way we create a skeleton in Maya is we start with the hips, so that would be joint 1, work our way up through the spine, through the head, then create the left leg, the right leg, the left arm, and then the right arm. And this shows you how to rename all of those joints. And you'll see that the hips joint is named hips, the spine joint is named spine, spine 1, neck, head. They're pretty standard names, and these are the basically the default names that MotionBuilder looks for. And if you have the naming template, and you can name these in Maya, it makes the characterization process in MotionBuilder even faster. So again, once the character is set up and skinned in Maya, you would save it off also as an FBX. And again, if you don't have that option here, the way we turn on that plugin in Maya is under the Window, Setting and Preferences plugin manager, and there's a plugin called FBX Maya, and you just make sure that's loaded, and if you check auto load, it'll load itself automatically every time you open the software. So once that's set up, we can save the scene as in this case Maya character for MB. Okay. And then we go back into MotionBuilder, and I'm going to open up that scene, and we see a very similar looking scene that we open up. Sorry, bear with me, I can't see my mouse still. Okay, so all the bones in the skeleton, all the joints in the skeleton here, the models here, and since we named everything, the same as what we named we named all the joints in Maya to match the names that MotionBuilder is looking for. We can just go down to what we call our asset browser over here in the right hand corner. Let me just check real quick here to see if there are any questions. No? Okay, good. So if we go down here into our pose controls, under our asset browser, under characters, we can find, under the characters folder, we find something called character. And I'm just going to drag this to any part of the character. It doesn't matter if it's the model or the joints, and release it and click the button that says characterize. Again, it's going to ask me if I want a biped or a quadruped. Choose biped, go down under the character. I'm going to rename this to Maya character. Double click. It's already characterized because we named all of those bones in Maya. And then all we have to do is create the control rig, FKIK, and we're good to go, right? Same thing. Let me just move this down because I seem to be able to control my mouse when this is set up here. So if we select different parts of the skeleton and move them, all right, my mouse has disappeared again. Okay. We can move them. We have two different settings for moving the options, moving the different parts of the rig. We have the global, which is the axes on the move tool will be set to the world view. So Y is up, Z is forward, and X is side to side. Okay, and we have local, which sets the move tool based on whatever you have selected. And this becomes really handy when we're when we're rotating things. So if I were to move the arm into place and then try to rotate the elbow, for example, with the tool set to global, you can see it doesn't, the axes of the rotate plane don't line up with the way that the arm is pointed. But if we set this to local, it will be the rotation will be lined up here, so it's easier to rotate the character along the way that the arm is bending. Okay, so we have a couple of different ways to work with this, to work with the control rig that we have in MotionBuilder, and we can move the bones, for example, move the arms to the front of the character. If I wanted to have this character push against the wall, I could set the hand to be against the wall, and then with that hand selected, I can click on these buttons that say pin the translation, which is the movement of what you have selected, in this case the left hand, and I can also pin the rotation of what I have selected. And then you'll see that when I move the hips, for example, that hand stays locked to where it is. This would become really handy for things like pushing against a door, or doing push-ups, or climbing against something, leaning against a wall. And when we release that pinning for the hand, then when we move the character, we can see that that hand moves with the rest of the body. Now, the legs, the feet for the character are pinned by default, and that's so that we can move the hips down and have the feet brace against the ground. But you can also unpin those as well. But for the most part, you're going to leave the feet pinned in both the translation and the rotation, so that you can move the character against the feet. So when you're animating and walking, for instance, the character will stay set against the ground. So I'm just going to undo all this, get back to our stance pose. And you can always get back very quickly to, if we move the character and things get really out of whack and we don't like this, we can always click the button up here that says go back to stance pose, and it will automatically click our character back to the original pose that we set up the control rig in. So one of the really important things to set up for MotionBuilder is what we call the floor contacts, and that allows us to be able to rotate the feet. And you'll see that right now when I rotate them, they go through the ground, and that can be handy sometimes if the character's flying, if jumping, climbing on things. You want to be able to have the feet rotate freely down. But for the most part, your character is going to be, because we live in a world with gravity, is going to be on the ground, and so you want to be able to rotate those feet so that they push against the ground. And we do that with something called our floor contacts. And this is going to be a little bit easier to see in the right hand, in one of the orthographic views, rather than the perspective view here. And the way we change views under our view menu is we can change to our perspective view, which is what we're in now. We can create new cameras, or we can look at these orthographic views, which are basically just flat views without any depth. So I can't rotate around in those views, but I can move up and down. In this case, it's just the front view. But I'm going to actually go into the right-hand view to get a close-up of these floor contacts. So I'm going to scroll down here under my navigator again, make sure I click on my character. And under the Character Settings tab, I want to scroll down here till I see the tab that says Floor Contacts, and I'll expand that. And you can see that you can have contacts for every part of the character: the floor, the hands, the fingers, the toe, the feet. All of those things, you can have contacts for all of those things, but for the most part, if it's a biped character, you're not going to have hand contacts because the character walks on only 2 legs, and so you really don't need or want to have those hands push against anything. But if this were a quadruped character like a dog or a gorilla, being able to have those contacts for the hands as well becomes really important. But for right now, I'm just going to, because this is a biped, I'm just going to set up the contacts for the floor. So you can see that the feet floor contacts here, I'm going to click on that. And you can actually, it's a little tough to see them. So I'm going to scroll down till I see the feet floor contact setup. And then again until I see the feet contacts position, and you'll see that I have a size, feet contact size, and I can take that all the way up to, I think 1,000 is as high as it'll let me go. And you can see the contacts look like these green squares, and with this position we can set up to match the specific character that we have here. And but for the most part, the height of the feet is going to be set to where you want it automatically, because it's going to be set to wherever the bone of the foot is set up. So for the most part, you can leave the height alone. But you'll want to set the back so that it lines up with the back of the foot, and then the middle so that it lines up with where the ball of the foot, that bone on your skeleton, you want it to line up with that. So I'm going to line that up to match with that. And then the front, this is actually easier to see in the perspective view. I want the front to line up with the sort of the middle front of the foot. There, that looks good. And then you can set the inside to line up with the middle of your character, and usually set it to be at the widest part of the foot, which is usually the front part of the foot. I'll set that middle contact to be right about at that middle of the foot, and then finally the outside to be at the outside of the foot. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so now with those floor contacts set up, I can select that foot again and rotate it. You can see now that it presses against the ground. And that becomes really important for animating a walking animation. It becomes really important to be able to rotate the feet around to rotate the feet and have them flip, have them push against the ground the way our feet do when we walk. Okay? So any questions about any of that? Let me check that. No? Good. All right. So I'm going to save off this, save this off here. Frozen. Bear with me, I seem to be frozen here. I'm going to save this off as Maya characterized. Okay. Hopefully, just because my my GoToMeeting here is frozen. Hopefully everybody can still hear me. I'm going to go forward with the recording here, just in case. So in case everybody got knocked off, this will be recorded for everybody to download and read. I'm sorry, I'm not sure why my mouse keeps disappearing on my display here. So I'm going to open up a character that I already set up with a character that's skin that I've already set up with the floor contacts here. And you can see that this character is a little bit more full-fledged than the test character that I set up for you guys. But you can see that it's pretty much set up in the same manner, where we can have the floor contacts, we have and all the different ways of moving this. Let me see if I can get this. Here we go. Good. All right. So I'm going to go through really quickly and go through a very simple, very rough walk cycle for this character to kind of show you how you go through the process of animating something like a walk cycle in MotionBuilder. So I'm going to select the right foot here, actually rather the left foot, and move it forward. It's going to be a little slow because I'm having trouble seeing my mouse. Okay, and I'm going to rotate this foot up. Okay, go back, move my my hips up a little bit. Okay, select the other foot, rotate it so that and again you can see that the foot is pushing against the ground. If I zoom in a little bit here, see that the foot is pressing against the ground. Now I'm going to select the arm, and I'm going to rotate the shoulder down. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time creating really sexy poses with this because we're a little bit pressed for time. But I'm just going to get enough of the poses to kind of give you the idea of how we can very easily and quickly animate a walk cycle in MotionBuilder. Okay. So opposite arm forward, right? So since the left leg is forward, the right arm is back. The right leg is back, so the right arm is forward. You'll learn some of the intricacies of a walk cycle as you get into the character animation courses and the programs. But really, at this point, I'm just going to get a really simple pose going. Okay, so I like that. So I'm going to go up here, and let's talk a little bit about the different ways we set keyframes in MotionBuilder. We have a few different settings. We have the full body, which means when we set a keyframe, no matter what we have selected, in this case I have just the hips selected, even though I have just the hips selected, when I set a keyframe, I'm going to be setting a keyframe for all of the different parts of the control rig. I have body part here, which is the buttons here, and body part means that I'm only going to set a keyframe for that part of the body. So with the hips, I'm only going to set a keyframe for the hips. If I were to select the left arm, I would set a keyframe only for the controls on that left arm. If I were to select the the right leg, I would select only the create a keyframe only for the controls for that leg. So for the most part, though, it's a good practice to kind of stick with full body, because full body gives you those keyframes, and you can always delete keyframes that you don't want. So for the most part, you're gonna set a keyframe for full body for most of the work that you do. And the way that we set keyframes is down here in our key controls window. And you can see that it's set. We can also change these settings down here in our drop-down window. So from full body, body parts, T stands for just translations. That would mean setting a keyframe just for the movement. Rotation, R means for rotation. We'd set a keyframe just for the rotation. Scale, S is scale. T and R is translation and rotation. TRS is translate, rotate, and scale. And then the final one is the selected properties. And for the most part, that's going to be individual bones. And you're almost never going to animate individual bones in MotionBuilder. I don't think I've ever done it in my life. So for the most part, though, you're going to stick with full body. So I'm going to click key, and you're going to see that it sets a keyframe here for the current frame that we're on. In this case, the very first frame is 0. That it sets a keyframe, and a keyframe looks like like an upside down triangle pointer, and the nice thing is it's color coded. So full body will be red, and if we were to set if I were to go to another keyframe here, if I go to the frame, I'm sorry, frame 3 for instance, and set the to be just body parts, and set a key, we can see that this one is green. Okay, so this nice thing is that they're color coded, so it makes it really easy to kind of look at your timeline here and see what kind of keyframes you've set. So I'm just going to delete that one I just created, and I'm going to go to another keyframe. In this case, I'll go to frame 5 in my window, or actually I'll go to sorry, my mouse keeps disappointing. I'll go to the middle frame. In this case, it's 20, so I'll go to frame 10. And I want to create the same keyframe, the same pose here, but I want to have it flip. So instead of the left leg forward and the right leg back, I want to have the right leg forward and the left leg back. And we can do this really quickly and easy in MotionBuilder with something called our pose controls. And this allows us to copy poses and to paste them. We can also paste them with the mirror option checked on. That allows us to kind of take a pose and paste it flipped around in any direction based on the orientation of the character. So the first thing down here in our pose controls is I can create a pose for the current one. So in this case, we can see that it created a pose here, and it's going to be named automatically based on whatever your character's name is. But I'm going to rename this again by right-clicking, and I'm going to call this left contact, because that's what the pose we call when we have the left heel contact the ground. And I'm going to flip this around so that it's the opposite. So I'm going to go back up to my character controls here, select the hips, because I want it to flip. I want it to flip based on the middle of the character. So I'm going to select the hips, and I'm going to go down here to the mirror options, and I'm going to click the M for mirror. And then it's going to give me the option of viewing it's looks like a little eye. You probably can't see this on your screen, but it looks like the icon is an eye, and that gives me the option of seeing the pane that I'm the way that the way that the character is going to be mirrored. So I'm going to make sure that I have mirror checked here, and click on this again. Sorry, I can't seem to keep my mouse showing up here. Questions. Okay. Sorry, I keep freezing here. Bear with me, guys. I'm frozen here. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I'm going to have to close this out here and restart it. I apologize. I can't get this to work again. Start this. I'm going to close Maya here. Try to free up some resources. This is a good time to ask if there are any questions. Anybody have any questions? It's probably it's certainly used for almost exclusively for to answer. I'm sorry, in case anyone didn't read this. Tina asks, is MotionBuilder mostly used in the industry for animation and not 3ds Max or Maya? It's the preeminent tool for motion capture animation, and to such a degree that every motion capture system that's created is actually written to work in real time with MotionBuilder. So when I do motion capture work and I go out to a studio where we have a performer who's wearing this suit, you've probably seen some images or videos of people wearing a sort of black leotard with bright white balls on attached to it. That's a certain kind of motion capture system called optical, and it gives you the MotionBuilder uses. So we'll set that up so that the person who's performing in that suit, we can connect it directly to a character like this, and in real time, as that actor's performing the motion capture performance, we can see it directly on the 3D character, which comes in really handy for the director because they can actually see what the performance is going to look like in real time on the actual 3D character. It's certainly the industry leader in motion capture. I use it almost exclusively when I can or when I'm allowed to by a client in my personal work for all my character animation, I think it's the easiest tool and it works the best. It's, again, as you're probably gathering here, it's a little bit memory intensive, so it's difficult. It can crash on you, but it certainly is I think the easiest to use. It displays an incredible amount of model data in real time without ever really I've never had it fail to display a character in real time. This character is actually pretty high resolution, as you can see, and it really is. There's no real lag or delay in the way that it displays the animation. So it's an incredibly powerful program. The only caveat really is that it can cause you to crash, particularly if you don't have a lot of RAM or you don't have a really high-end graphics card. So, but if you save often, you can pretty much get around that. But I think a lot of people assume that MotionBuilder is strictly for motion capture, and it is used. It is used quite a bit for motion capture. In fact, I've never been on a motion capture job, and I that's the lion's share of my professional work these days. I've never been on a motion capture job that hasn't used it, and used MotionBuilder and used it again in real time as the performer's performing. So let's see if I can get this one to work now that I've closed out Maya. I probably should have done that earlier. So let's give myself a few more, and you guys know how a timeline works. We have an end frame and a start frame, end frame. The animation goes from the start frame to the end frame. So let me just really quickly try to get back the work I had here, so we can. Okay. And also, make sure that we can see that even though we're probably not going to get too much not to get to animating the fingers too much, that those are available to us in the controls window as well. So you can see these little arrows that are next to the hand, and that allows us to kind of go in and see. If we click on that arrow, that takes us into the fingers, and again, everything's FKIK. So the fingers move as an IK chain of joints, and you can also select the FK joints, which are the yellow ones, and rotate the fingers individually. And a lot of times with finger animation, when we're doing really discrete poses for when a character is holding something or grabbing onto something, talking with its hands. For the most part, you're not going to be using IK because your fingers move very discreetly, individual bones. So being able to select the IK joints in a finger allows you to get very precise poses for those fingers. But you can go into those controls for the hands by clicking on those arrows and then clicking on the large one in the corner to get back to the view. Again, it's for both hands, so we can get into the right hand as well. But we're going to try to get through this really quickly here, so I can kind of show you a little bit about the pose controls and how to work with those. But if I move through anything too fast, feel free to stop me and ask a question in the chat window. And I'm just going to try to set a really simple pose here. Okay, good enough. So again, I have full body selected. I'm going to set a key, and I'm going to go halfway through. I'm actually going to go ahead and set a keyframe at the end for the same thing, because I want to have my character, I want this to be a walk cycle, so I want it to start and end on the same pose, so that at the end I could set my end frame to be one less, back to 49, and then it'll cycle back through the poses, and it'll be a seamless cycle. So I'm going to set another keyframe here for the end, and then see if I can set the pose controls here to select my to create a pose. So I'm going to select my hips here, and I'm going to create this pose. Again, call it left contact. Okay. Let me go to the middle frame, so in this case it'll be frame 25. Make sure my mirror is checked on. And that'll flip the pose around from the left leg being forward to the right leg being forward. So I'm going to set a keyframe there. And we can see that really quickly now the character is shifting from through this cycle back and forth. Right? This is what character animation is all about. So we're going to very quickly get a very simple walk cycle, but we'll go through and get the individual poses here. So I'm going to go pretty close to the next pose. So the first pose we have is what we call the left contact. So the left heel is touching the ground. So I'm going to go a little bit forward, so about there. And this is the pose where we call it's sometimes called recoil, sometimes called down, depending on who you ask. That's where the front foot comes down and touches the ground. And again, the nice thing is that I can, once I set that foot flat, I can move it down, and once I hit the ground, the floor contacts that we set up will stop it from hitting, right? So that's there. Set a keyframe. As that left foot comes down, the right foot is going to transition from being up on the ball of the foot to having the toes touching the ground, and we can select the toes. We can select the ball of the foot here. We can also select it if we click the arrow next to the foot, that takes us into the foot controls. And now some characters, barefooted characters, something like a gorilla, you're going to have the bones for the toes set up the way we do for the hands here. But for this character, it's wearing a onesie actually, so we can't see its toes. So there are no toe joints. But I can select the ball of the foot and rotate that so that it's flat on the ground. So that it's straight. Okay. And then, right. And again, the foot will stop us as we get to the floor contact here. It will stop us when we get down. And go back here. And you can see that sometimes I'm switching between X-ray and models only, because sometimes I want to be able to see the control rig in my scene and select it, and sometimes when I'm trying to get a sense of the pose here, I want to see just the model. So being able to toggle back and forth here between normal, X-ray, and models only becomes really handy. Okay, so that looks pretty good. The one thing I'll do is that the hips will have come a little bit forward here, and the character will have moved down. So set that keyframe. So we can see now that we're starting to get a little bit more of the pose. And what I can do now is take that recoil pose, create another pose under my pose controls, click the create button. And this one I'm going to call left down or left recoil, it doesn't matter. And I can go to the opposite pose here, and mirror that so that the right foot comes down on that pose, right? So you can see that very quickly I've set those two poses, and we can see here that we're getting some flipping on the foot. I'm going to show you guys how to fix that in the next presentation, because this is something that happens a lot in motion capture animation, where because the person that's performing in the suit can move in any way that they can. The rig that you have set up has certain ways that it can and can't move. So I'll show you how to fix these kinds of issues in the next presentation. But hopefully you can see really quickly that using the pose controls and these mirror option allows us to very quickly not only get through something like a walk cycle, but it also allows us to save these poses. And these will save we can actually export them or save them in our scene, and we can use them for anything. So, for example, I could go into the characterized character that we set up in the beginning here, and save off poses for this guy as well, and add them to the Tommy pose. So I'm going to go through and open up a file that kind of walks through this a little bit, goes through a little bit sexier walk cycle here. And change my view here to preview. So this is a little bit bigger for you guys to see. And okay, so this is a little bit, a little bit more of a fully realized walk cycle. There's some animation of he's wearing a onesie with long toes, so I have him scraping the ground a little bit. But these poses, that I created, and there's a lot of them here, are the very sort of simple same poses that we created here. So we have heel contact, right? Recoil or down, passing, which is where the front foot starts to push up and the back foot comes forward. Then that high point where that back foot kicks forward, and then opposite contact. Okay, so being able to save off these poses allows you to not only get through an animation, something like a walk cycle that you're animating over and over again for a character, but I could use these. I could save these poses off and use them on any character. One of the really nice things about MotionBuilder, one of the reasons that it's used so much in motion capture, is that no matter how different the character model might be, the MotionBuilder can figure out the animation for no matter what the differences are in the scales or proportions, or even the different number of bones in the skeleton. So we can see here that in this case there's a lot more bones in the spine than in the character, the test character that I created. So I'm going to merge that test character. Frozen again. Sorry. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So we can see that there's a lot fewer bones in this skeleton here, right? In the baby character, there was about 12 joints in the spine, whereas there's really only 3 here. It's the bottom, the middle, and the top. And yet I could take this and use the same poses would work on this character. They're going to look a little bit different because they're very different models, but the same poses can be applied to this character, even though it's a very different skeleton that was used to create it. Okay, so it looks like it's just about 3 o'clock now. So I'm going to end here. Are there any questions before we end? Again, I apologize for all the technical problems. The first time we did this, we had Adobe Connect, and it seemed to work a lot better. So I'm afraid that the GoToMeeting was a little bit didn't work as well with MotionBuilder. So maybe we can figure out a way to use Adobe Connect again for the next presentation. Yes, the video will be posted. I'm not sure how we're going to get that to you yet, but I recorded this, so that file is available. But as I said at the beginning, they're pretty large, so I couldn't email it to you. But I'm going to give you that somehow, and our program director will help us figure out a way that we can get those files to you. And I'm also going to give you the this character, this sort of test character that I created. I'm going to give you the 3ds Max file and the Maya file that you guys can use. And I'm also going to give you this. I'm also going to give you this naming template that allows you to name the joints automatically in Maya. So if you create the skeleton the way I said, so from the hips up through the spine, the left leg, and then the left arm, this will rename all the joints for you automatically. And that allows you to go through that really simple process of characterizing the skeleton. So I'm going to give you the Maya file with that character and the 3ds Max file with that character. So if you have either one of those applications, hopefully you can download MotionBuilder and start to work with this and go through the recorded presentation and hopefully get something out of this. Okay. So next month, and we'll be sending out an invitation shortly for this. But next month, I believe it's the 5th, the first Wednesday in February at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, I'll be doing another presentation that will focus just on how to work with motion capture data in MotionBuilder. And I think it seems to be a common question from a lot of our students who, especially our game animation students who are really into motion capture. So I'll show you guys some motion capture data that I captured from one of my jobs. That one of my clients let me use their motion capture system for an hour to get some really simple animation, some really simple data. And I'll show you how to work with that and apply it to different character designs. Okay. So thanks for attending, everybody. I really appreciate you showing up. And again, sorry for all the technical problems, but hopefully we can figure out a way to get rid of some of those for the next presentation. Okay. I hope to see you all then.